It's Saturday night. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, let me. Let me see something here. Ooh, okay. Hey, Patrick, what's happening? I queued up the music. My son's music, so I don't have to pay any license. We'll give it a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Get that gone. This might be my theme music going forward. Unless my son creates something newer and better. I kind of like it. What do you guys... Well, I don't know how many people are on here. Let me go back there. Let me go back. See if we have more than 2 people. I think so too. Let me lower it a little bit. I can monetize it. Let me see how we monetize this. Usually they ask you a bunch of questions. I might make a quarter of a penny. His channel. All right. Yeah, I'm going to go through eBay. I'm going to go through some eBay. I'm going to try to find some bargains in the 1970 and newer robots category. Sometimes you find some deals there. So, but there's a few things that I want to, I got to talk about some stuff first. This just popped up on my Yahoo feed, and I want to share it because I guess I always have like a blurb about finance stuff. But, I mentioned in one of the other streams how Warren Buffett always gets bailed out. This a-hole, at 90 years old, keeps buying stuff. You see this? He's in contact with Biden's team on the banking crisis. And you read down here and it tells you how he bailed out Goldman Sachs and all these other banks. So once again, I was right. He's going to swoop in there, pick up some of the failing banks, and they'll be the ones that get bailed out, trust me. And so then he'll probably make 40, 50% or double or triple his money. That's his MO, and it happens all the freaking time, all the time. And then there was something else that was funny here. Look, Sharon Stone, I lost half my fortune in the banking crisis. Boo-hoo. Boo-hoo, Sharon Stone. I mean, of all the people that we're supposed to feel sorry for, why would they even put this as a story? Who cares? What about the people in Ohio that still are drinking contaminated water? Isn't that a story? We care about Sharon Stone. And how much is her fortune anyway? Why the hell was she invested in banks? Thank God I shifted to all cash. Thank God. Anyway, how are we doing on the? Okay, we still have only 3, so. I'm gonna tell you a funny and it's not actually just a story. It's my transgender experience story, okay? So bear with me. It's not like crazy or anything like that. I have to take a sip of water. Back in the 90s, I would say, let me think about this. It had to be the early 90s. So about 30 years ago, I worked for this huge company, huge industrial company. I mentioned them before, in the top 25 biggest companies in the world. No, it's not. It's not even bad. It's not bad. So in the early 90s, I dealt with a lot of. Uh, do I? Well, I took it off. The multi-screen's not on there now, right? I hope it's not on. Let me get rid of this. Let me go to here. So in the 90s, this huge company I worked for, whenever there was a big problem or a big, let's say, order, right, you had to go through a credit review process. Now, orders that, and again, this is 30 years ago. So let's say $250,000 order back then, which is, I think it's still large today, but back then, even $250,000 would have been considered huge. $1 million order would have been phenomenal. Things had to go through like a credit review process. So my local credit person, once it exceeded a certain threshold, wasn't able to approve them, and it had to go to the corporate level. The corporate office was based out of Wisconsin, Racine, Wisconsin. Makers of good Kringle, by the way. If you like Kringle, they have it at Trader Joe's now. In fact, the same bakery that they get their Kringle from, they used to send it to me. So there was a woman that was, yeah, and I'll say that this woman named Tracy was the credit person. So follow along here. They were my credit person at the corporate level. There was maybe 2 or 3 that handled the entire country. So on the East Coast, I had Tracy. One day, we get a note from corporate saying, as of such and such a date, you will no longer refer to Tracy as Tracy. You will refer to Tracy as Jason. We're like, what? What the hell are you talking about? So we were like clueless, like, what, nobody had heard us. Again, this is going back to like maybe 1992. So these things were unprecedented back then. Nobody had any experience. So everyone was trying to figure out, well, did they change their name? Like, what's going on? So apparently, this person decided to transition from, a slightly overweight female to a male. And the company made it known that you would address them by their proper name. There was no pronoun. They didn't say you would refer to she as he, or it was just like, you will call Tracy Jason. That was it. Now, I had met Tracy at national meetings before. And, like I said, it was just a youngish 30-something. I was in my, younger, significantly younger than her. I met her at various meetings, and oh, okay. Did you really, Patrick? That's so. I'm not the only. So that was about close to 30 years ago too. 20 that year. In your case, it was 27 years ago. Mine was 31 years ago. So now, I mean, they made it clear that if you were to do something to offend this person, you'd essentially lose your job, and they didn't care who you were. And by the way, because it's 11:30 something here. Oh no, not 11:30. 11. I can't even see. It's, I think, a quarter after 11. I'm drinking my Fiji water. Hopefully, you guys are clanking with some coffee. They made it clear that you would lose your job. So all right. So I'm not the only one. Now, maybe like I'm trying to think that when I ran into this person, it could have been like a year or two after. Now there were some guys made some, amongst ourselves, not amongst ourselves. Like I didn't participate. I heard the jokes. They called the, when we found out what it was, they called the operation and add a dicta onto me. That was the big joke. They said they had the add a dicta onto me. Nothing terrible, but that was it. And I'm like, okay. Now, and this person was always nice to me. So maybe like 2 years later, I ran into, the now Jason at a meeting. And I was shocked because she apparently had been taking, not only did she have the operation, but she also was taking hormones and was working out. So all of a sudden, I saw this sort of buff, with a full beard, and very lush hair too, kind of slicked back. And as a woman, she had like a pretty boy's face, if you know what I mean. And I said to myself, there is absolutely no way in hell anybody that would meet this person for the first time would ever suspect that this person was a female previously. There's absolutely no way. I mean, now Jason is wearing a full suit, looks a little buff, full beard. It would have been impossible. I mean, so the transition was very convincing, very convincing. I bring this up because nobody, once you saw this person, it was like, okay, so it's a thing, I guess. We thought it was really odd, and nobody really asked this person any questions. Nobody really made fun of it other than the initial time. A couple of people threw some kind of crass jokes, but it was very mild, and that was it. In other words, it was a non-event. That's my best description of it. Nobody cared. Nobody. Everyone treated this person with respect, with dignity. The company treated them with respect and dignity. And I'm thinking now, this is why I don't even do like the funny Twitter segment, because there's so much vile and violent stuff on there. I thought some of it is funny, but I said, why is this agenda now like being pushed in our face? Like everyone accepted it 30 years ago without a peep. It was considered odd. It was considered unusual. And I think, there was some empathy, basically. Well, if this person really feels this way and it's, they're having mental issues because of it, it wasn't, there wasn't any animosity towards them. And now, though, it's like shoved in your face in a way that it has the absolute slingshot opposite effect, that it makes you dislike the way the agenda is actually pushed. So that's all. That's the whole point of my story, that like people were very accepting, and Patrick, you might attest to this. I'm sure in 96, which was 27 years ago, in my case, it was 31 years ago, these things happened. It was sort of quiet. People accepted it and they moved on. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't in schools. It wasn't tried to, it wasn't pushed on kids. So I just find the whole thing odd. But there is actually, I sent a link to Styx. There are some very, strange people pushing it, like the Pritzker family. I didn't realize was heavily involved in it. They're the billionaire family that pushed Obama and Buttigieg. So there's a like online magazine called Tablet that actually wrote an entire story about how the Pritzkers. There's a Pritzker cousin that looks like that governor that transitioned after he had like 3 kids. And he's been funding a lot of this in schools, in universities, in medical institutions. They're behind a lot of it. Now, whether they're invested is another story. I think they are. So there are some people behind a lot of it. So just thought I would throw that out there. But again, there's a reason that they'll push to change guidelines, and that it's shoved down people's throats now, because people with money have an agenda behind it, and the medical industry has an agenda. Yeah, that's what they did with us too. They took us kind of aside and said, "Hey, by the way, and people have common sense though. Nobody's going to say anything stupid, But to be fair, nobody threw it in your face either. Like it wasn't like a person that, look at me, you know what I mean, just like over the top, flamboyant, and just. you know, haranguing you about it either. All right, so that's enough of that. I just thought I thought about it because you see it so often now. It's just inundated in the media, and you wonder why there's an agenda. And then, like I did at the most basic research, you find that there's some people behind it, as it always is the case with anything, the narrative, right? There's people behind it, whether it's movies. So I had a super collector come visit the museum yesterday. I call it super because I believe somebody that has like $1 million collection. So that was interesting. I hosted and entertained them, and they picked up some T-shirts, which was nice. So that was the first major collector that came, and we shared story, and I saw a lot of pictures of his collection. I saw the holes in this collection. Definitely had some items that I would like to have here. Jose, what's up, my man? I have to type you a message. Da, da, da. So, for those that know Ira E, he spent several hours here, and we went over not only our collections, but it got me to thinking. One of my topics here, the state of the hobby, and why I did this collection to the public. One of my biggest fears is that people lose interest in this kind of stuff. Now, these toys, right? Unlike movies that they could change and they could retcon, you can't do that to toys, right? You cannot go back and recreate. Well, you could reproduce a toy. That's not the point. In other words, like if you take a tin toy, a ray gun, a robot, it is what it is. It was played with by who it was played with. Its cultural significance is etched in stone. You can't go back in time and reinvent and say, well, this toy, was made for XYZ, or this toy, has some other meaning or purpose, right? These are cultural artifacts. And they preserve something about history that you can't give this to the media. You can't give it to Disney, and they're going to say, well, this Robbie the Robot toy, we need to change it and make it more for the modern audience, that kind of BS, right? So it's preserving culture, and there's a lot of culture here. There's the Atomic era. There's early anime, especially with Speed Racer, Gigantor. Those are the most popular one. But Astro Boy, which they made, new Astro Boy movie. I'm waiting for the. I don't think they've done a new Gigantor movie, but they should. And then there's a lot of other characters that they have not tapped the well for, like 8-Man, which is kind of a sort of similar to Iron Man. And then there are wacky characters like Space Ace and Captain Ultra and Ultraman, which I do think Disney has the rights to do a movie. Hopefully they won't butcher it. So our concern, though, is, are people going to get tired of this stuff, though? I mean, it's almost like the cars. I remember the Duesenbergs and the Auburn Cord Speedsters, some of those really cool cars from the 20s and 30s, the Art Deco cars. They're becoming, so archaic that it's just, they may not have a place anymore. Like, who's going to want to drive like a Duesenberg from 1928? And I've seen the prices go down quite a bit. Now, in the hobby, I think mechanical banks hit a peak maybe 15, 20 years ago. And slowly they've been going down, down, down in value. And people still collect them, but the prices have gone down. And I see them auctioned off. I mean, collections constantly. And now the mechanical banks are from the late 1800s to say the 1920s. Those are the key ones. And after that, they also have cast iron toys. They lost a lot of steam, even though they're kind of cool. Now, tin is different. Tin is a lot more artistic because artists like Jose had to design the lithography that was used, and they're much more appealing aesthetically. They're not as heavy as cast iron. The boxes are very, they can be very graphic, ornate. They look like comic books. And I don't think people really understand the rarity and the scarcity of the really valuable ones. One of the comparisons to me were well, if you pay $1 million for Superman number one, which there might be a couple of dozen left in the world, you could take a rare tin toy that there's maybe only two or three in the world with a beautiful box that looks like the cover of a comic book, and at the most it might be worth say 100,000. So why would one comic book be worth 10 times that? And that is a good point. Now, granted, like Superman is supposedly like the character or whatever, but the purpose of my collection is really just to get the public interested so that the hobby doesn't die, because that is a risk. Like when us old timers, sort of, well, and I'm not, geriatric old, but I'm older, and how do you get new blood into the hobby? I have this debate with my wife, and I say the best way is with some sexy girls on TikTok holding some robots. Even if it's this guy, right? And she's like, well, sure, if you want to cheapen it. I'm like, well, that's not cheapening it. Unfortunately, if you look at YouTube, and in fact, here, let me open it, see if I can work this. That's what I did, that opening. If you see, a young girl in a bikini doing that, it's going to have millions of views. And if she's wearing one of my T-shirts, that's great, right? My wife thinks, well, that's cheapening it. I think that's just the way you have to market today, especially like on TikTok and Instagram. So, that's the battle that we face. I'm leaning towards, using a little bit of like that social media in that respect, because from what I see, that's what gets attention. And if you go on YouTube Shorts, that's what gets millions of views, hundreds of thousands of views. I mean, if you're going to sell, let's say, the T-shirt. Now, somebody might say, well, okay, you could sell maybe some T-shirts that way, but what does that do with the toys? Well, look, they'll eventually connect the brands, so let's see. Ozzy, can you touch on the pros and cons of design and production your own tin robot? I really... All right, so for me, okay, take cost out of the equation, and titillation of selling merchandise. So that I'll leave it at that. Like, so you guys can kind of vote on if you think it would be good to use somebody younger for social media, like the stuff that's popular. I thought about this too. I actually had that on the agenda because I have spoken to somebody. I'm just looking. Oh, you said, Jose, first I'm going to ask you this. Would you say specifically tin? Is that like a qualifier? Does it have to be tin? And I'll tell you, the reason I say that is because I've already spoken to somebody about utilizing some of these artists that do the really, really rare sofubis that, they make a run of like 5 to 10. They sell out, and on the secondary and tertiary markets, some of these sofubis then explode in value. So we talked about maybe getting one of these artists that do the sofubis. And if you've seen some of the astronauts that they do, they look phenomenal. Phenomenal. So, right now I'm leaning towards that really limited run, exclusive. Like, for instance, like I'm thinking of like a Dynamo Sofubi. That would be, like I have on the black T-shirt. I'd like to do one of those. Now, so I did speak with Jay at Robot Island about doing a tin robot. His suggestion was those little R35 based robots because they could be modified easily. I don't like the round head on those. I think it looks kind of goofy. I've always thought that the R35 head looks a little goofy. So here's, and I'll put it out there. Hopefully nobody steals this idea, but I would prefer to do the Lantern robot as a Dynamo robot. So think of the Lantern robot, but reconfigured with the Dynamo head, and in that deep kind of like an ink blue with the Dynamo lithography. I wouldn't need a lantern on it, but maybe I'd have the two holding some kind of electrical prongs. I think that's the sweet spot as far as size. And then it would also be kind of like a mascot for the museum. The other version of that I thought of for a Dynamo is the wind-up smoking robot, just that mid-level size. So it's a little bit bigger than the lantern. It's a wind-up. The core body structure already exists. To me, the biggest drawback is warehousing the inventory. I already have hundreds of toys that I can't display right now at the collection here because I just don't have the display cabinet space. Now, part of that's my fault because I decided to put these arcade machines and kiddie rides and big robots. So what I don't have, and I'll give you an example, like because Ira, who was here, when he actually came to my house after we went out to dinner last night, I showed him like just at one house because I have toys scattered over two houses and some in closets here. So my closets here are already full. Like for instance, the big space station that looks like the donut, the big red and the blue one. I have the red one displayed. I don't have the blue one displayed because I don't have the real estate for it. A lot of the Horikawas I don't have displayed. I don't have, let's say I have, the higher end, but like say the piston one and things like that, I don't display them. I don't have the real estate for. The plastic, like you mentioned, chrome dome, a lot of that stuff I have boxed now. So that's my dilemma. I don't have any of the ray guns, and I bought a ton of the ray guns at Morphy's auctions. None of those currently are displayed. I just built a standalone big cabinet in the theater room. So my intention is to put the ray guns in there. They just installed the hardware on that cabinet last week. So I think this coming week they're going to finally install the glass. And then actually, if somebody can help me with the little standees that you put the ray guns on. But then I'm trying to think, how do I layer those? Because like once you put a ray gun down, unless I have a step up, like a ladder system or a step system, it's going to be hard to display the ray guns one behind another unless I could tier them up. And then, of course, the boxes are going to be an issue. So that's the case. So thinking of having, for me, it's not the cost. I'll take the cost out of the equation, although it's not cheap to do the robot. But like, let's say I had to do minimum of 500 lantern robots, for argument's sake. The demand isn't there right now. And think of how much room, how many cases you would have with 500 lantern robots. Even if it was, 200 or 300, that's still a lot of space you need. I just don't want to warehouse this stuff. And I'll tell you honestly, like, I haven't seen a huge demand. I mean, I'd be happy even if just some of the Alpha Drone members that are on the East Coast came by and visited. Now, maybe I'll have a bot stock event, but there is like a kind of a general apathy. So it doesn't motivate me to invest into a product when, people aren't even like, say, willing to buy a $30 t-shirt. So now I'm thinking, if they don't want to spend for like a mug, $15 mug or something like that, or a t-shirt, what are the odds that they're going to want to spend, $50 or $100 on a robot? I know that there's going to be like the first maybe 20 people that do. But beyond that, I'm a little skeptical, And I've seen it. And you could go back to like when they made the Mr. Atomic and the Robbie sleds. They're just not, initially they languished. They languished and they couldn't even sell those out. And those were like some of the best made reproductions. They are the best made reproductions of all time, or have to be the Osaka Mr. Atomic and the MTH Robbie sleds. Now the Robbie sleds, probably the most valuable reproductions. They go for, anywhere from, let's say, $1,700 to $2,200 is the window, and that's probably the most successful. The price point, let's just say for argument's sake, about $100, and that would be low. I know I have people like David Kirk has mentioned to me that he'd like to see like the Gang of Five, and to me, like, if you made the Gang of Five and you couldn't get $1,000 a pop, it wouldn't even be worth doing because you would piss off so many collectors. You would probably cheapen them, and you'd have to sell them at a price point because it would cost you a lot to tool up to do something that big. And I don't even know that I'd want to be the one responsible for, you know, doing that to the hobby. Quite frankly, that's why it would have to be something custom. But having said all that, I just want to let you know that there are some custom things in the pipe. The Sofubi right now, once I get with Marcy, she's going to come down. I'll tell you, I'll give you some inside baseball since you're watching the stream. Let's see how many other people are on here. Oh, 5, that's not bad. Marcy's going to come down. We're going to do like hundreds of pictures, and we're going to start with like publishing some books, like small, sort of like the postcard style books so that people can actually see what product is over here. We don't want to do the giant book just yet, like that big book that Rolf Fielbaum did that weighs like 50 pounds and cost you $100 to ship. Think of 1,000 tin toys, but like chopped up into like maybe 10 books. So this way we could, micro focus on certain categories. Maybe we'll do like, 50 robots and one little pamphlet-y style book because we want to be able to ship them easily, to buy them easily. So that's going to be the first order of business is getting these books and also something for the gift shop here. And I hear you. I mean, it'd be nice, like again, I've spoken also to Josh. If you saw the last live stream, I think if we can start maybe a toy show here, like an event that we do annually, and maybe corresponding with the big golf tournament here, where maybe it's sort of a hybrid bot stock toy fair, like the big shows like Atlantic City used to be, and maybe we have toy vendors come down. We're trying to figure out like, can we get like just more high-end toy dealers, because we don't want to be exclusionary, but like, do you want to have a bunch of people come and sell loose, Star Wars figures and Hot Wheels stuff like that, or do you want to keep it like focused on tin? Things that people care about, and then have like events at the museum. So part of the problem too is I'm just like a one-man band, and I have multiple businesses running at the same time, and my wife and son are great. They help me out, but they're kind of good at like, if I can direct, this is what we're going to do now, and have things delegated for them to do. But as far as like taking the initiative on certain big things like that, it's tough. And Patrick, you're right. It would be hard to recoup, but I do like the idea of live shows because it's just getting people together again. Like we're missing that. We've gone away as a society, as a culture, unfortunately, especially after COVID. Oh, hold on. I'm trying to... Oh, sorry about that. Well, I feel like I'm sitting low. So, if we could do live shows and bring people from all over the country here, not only does it get the museum exposed. Now, I am in North Florida, so the weather's pretty decent. If we did it in the, early spring, I could put tents out. I have almost 2 acres where the building is over here. It's closed on the weekend, so it wouldn't bother the other tenants. We could do kind of like the Friday night preview when everyone's gone and run it through the entire weekend. I could have tents. I could have food trucks. I mean, it could be really, really cool. Tents to protect it from the weather. And then we could have events inside in the museum. So that, it's a lot of things. I really need a team, though. And you do have to pay everyone. Nobody wants to work for free. Unfortunately, I'm the only one that seems to be, working for free. Even my son demands a paycheck. Can you believe that? The nerve of him. The noive, the absolute noive. So, and the other, and Jose, I'll kind of close off the custom toy on this. I really was considering like a tin Maria from Metropolis. I don't think they made a tin version of that, to my knowledge. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I know they made the resin version, a few resin versions of her. But tin would be really epic. A nice tin version of Maria from Metropolis with a really cool graphic box. The poster itself can be the box. And, just that whole Art Deco theme. I mean, if they made C3PO, they could certainly make Maria. So that, and now I don't even know if there's any licensing involved. It's almost 100 years old. It's in Germany. Well, I would imagine probably somebody in the United States has the license to it, but I wonder if it's in the public domain though. So that's the interesting question here. So that's my take right now on the custom stuff. But yeah, it is something that I'm strongly considering, and I have to get with Jay. But it's not like on the forefront right now. And you know, I don't know if Alpha Drome's the barometer of the collecting pulse, but even the Facebook groups. If you notice, we have Facebook groups like Nicholas's has I think like over 11,000 members, but it's the same 20 or 30 people that post. I know I'm probably one of the most ubiquitous posters on there, and I do it to promote things. Unfortunately, even though you get groups with anywhere from 3 to 12,000 members, the participation's minuscule, a minuscule percentage. Same with Alpha Drome. Alpha Drome has close to 4,000 members, and yet you have maybe 20 people that post there on a consistent basis. So that's a little disheartening, to be honest with you. And and then if you actually further that as to how many people actually will spend money on something, it's even less than that, if you can believe it. So again, I don't know if it's just the wrong audience, so it's a lot of puzzles to kind of figure out, and maybe do different targeting strategies. Mark Schenker probably would know that his company's like a marketing company, and they know how to target. So yeah, a live show would definitely be the way to go. And also, like over here, once I did get my parents just moved here recently. By the way, my dad was on death's door. I mean, we actually thought we were going to lose him. So after we did our premiere event that we did have the first live stream for, and it got over 100,000 views. After that, we were trying to take a vacation, and then my dad got really ill. He was in the hospital. We didn't think he was going to make it. He's almost 95 years old. So we were just like in hiatus, didn't do anything, weren't promoting. We didn't really want to stay open here because we didn't know if we would have to fly up for a funeral. So that dragged on for nearly 2 months. And then finally he recovered enough to move down here. Now he's actually physically here with my mom, and we're sort of working through that. You take somebody that was living somewhere else for 70 years. He's got to go through an adjustment. So we're dealing with like trying to figure out a few different things. But slowly but surely we're kind of getting all these processes in place and figuring it out. Oh, let me put my robot back here, my mascot. And by the way, you know what this is? This is the, I don't know if you guys know this, and it lights up, but it turns off. This is the Quantum from Fallout. I know Styx talks about this. I'll leave it on, but it turns off. So in the game Fallout, I think it was Fallout 4, you had the glowing quantum colas, Nuka colas. And that's just something you had to collect. And they're cool. So the company Bethesda made these collectible, they're shaped like a rocket, so I always thought they were cool. Thank you. Yeah, he has been improving. He was actually really impressed with the museum. I was like shocked. I thought he would maybe have like some kind of snarky comment, but he was genuinely touched and impressed. So that was pretty cool. By the way, since I have this page up, remember I was telling you guys about the GNXs. Since we happen to be on here, so here's the GNXs. And this is the prices that I'm used to that Meekum gets. Like here's one, 218, 248. Because I know some people were like, what do you mean? It's just a regular Grand National. No, here's a regular Grand National down here, 79. This is how much of a disparity between, let me go up here. So here's a regular Grand National here, and here's the GNXs. And this is the one that I was interested in because it was fairly cheap, relatively speaking. I feel like this kind of, you're a little high. They obviously polished this up, but I'm the one that made an offer on this one. I offered them 140. I'm trying to see if they take it. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but cars is part of my thing, even though I don't even drive them. But you know what? We'll see. I asked the guy to send me a copy of the title. He claims Hemming says you can't sell it. I'm like, well, I mean, you can't send the title information. Maybe it's like eBay. They don't want you to try to make a deal on the sly yourself. But I'm very interested in this car. I might have this, add it to the collection, if you will. It was faster than the Ferrari F40 and the Porsche 930 Turbo back in 1987 for a fraction of the cost. So that's something, for a GM product, no less. All right. So anyway, I mentioned eBay, and let's head over to eBay. So eBay, the main categories I look at are the robots 1970 and earlier. However, if you look at the toys from, let me get this down a little bit, 1970 and now, a lot of times there's a lot of deals there, because first off, there's some robots after 1970 that are really valuable, and sometimes people put robots that are older into this category, and they just don't know. So I usually, I don't. I used to look at this category, but now I don't have the time. You can see here, there's almost 20, over 24,000 results. So here's my eBay tip for you today. Again, sort by the highest price. And the reason you want to do that is because let's say you periodically, check this, let's say once a week or once every 3 days. Well, if something has flown under the radar, now all of a sudden the collectors found it, right? Then the price is going to skyrocket, and then you'll see it on the higher priced items. Now, is there anything on here that's worth? Let's go down some of these. The Mego tapes, I don't think so. I'm not familiar with these Metacom toys. The Jumbo Machinders, I'll tell you, there was a time that I thought this stuff was like junky until the Garada K7 sold at Mondaraki and actually blew past everything. It blew past the Machine Man, which sold for $160,000. That was previously the robot record holder, no longer. It blew past the sample Batman from Nomura that sold for about $150,000, and the Garada K7 established, I think it was $220,000 for a big 2-foot, kind of cool looking plastic Jumbo Machinder. Now, my understanding is, and they don't know who bought it, they suspect it was a Singapore or Hong Kong collector. There was only one reported box for the Garada K7 ever alleged to have existed that's supposedly in Hong Kong, but there was no documented proof or photographs. This one emerged on Yahoo Japan, I think about a year ago, and it had been bid up to over 100, but then the auction ended and disappeared, and it was assumed somebody made a private deal, and that was in fact the case. It was Mondaraki Auction House made the deal. They acquired the toy. Their opening bid was already over 100,000, and it ended up selling for over 200,000. So don't discount some of this big plastic stuff. And there is a younger, slightly younger generation that are into that. They grew up with the late 70s, early 80s, anime and cartoons. So something to keep in mind. So having said that, you could think really here, this Mirror Man here, right? This is in the 1970s. I have this in the box. These are pretty valuable. I think in the box it probably cost me maybe $15,000. Now, a lot of people don't realize that the head came off the Mirror Man. I do have a video on this. I think this is exceptionally cool. This giant version, they made Mirror Man and Ultraman. Now, this doesn't even... this is Antique Mike in Japan, who I've actually purchased from. So this opening bid is actually a reasonable price for a loose one. It's, not out of line. If you got it for the opening bid, if you don't care about the box, it's not a terrible price. What's kind of cool here is that you see things like this because it's 1970 and newer. And I thought about, would I like to have something like this right when you walk in the door to the museum? But for some reason, they don't. I'm sure like you could program this in English, but all of these seem to be overseas, usually in Korea, I think, possibly in China. Um, they're more like something like you would have a display at a trade show or a convention. And they used to be a lot more expensive than this. This one happens to be in Japan, and the price is not that bad when you think about it. Think about that. Mirror Man was $8,800. In fact, I'm going to put this on my watch list. Does it work? Do you need to run it through a computer? That's the thing I don't know. Is it programmable? Let's see what they say here. Pepper, SoftBank robot general sales model. With charging base, Pepper is the model for general consumers. Factory reset is completed. There are scratches and almost no stains. Overall, it's a beautiful state. So something like this is kind of cool, I guess. Like the design to me, and Jose is an artist. You might attest. It's I would call it almost like a fusion of 80s and then the bland 2000s, like iRobot with Will Smith. It looks like if you took an Omnibot and mushed it with iRobot, the Will Smith version, you would come up with this thing. Even some of those big 80s robots that were in like the Rocky movies that commercial company made. But at least it's humanoid looking, unlike my Astro robot from Amazon. But I'm assuming it's the same technology. Again, these jumbo machinders, I don't know the market for these, so I would leave it to more, people that are more into the hobby. When I don't see any watchers, I assume they're a little bit overpriced. So are there any bargains so far? Again, I'm going to kind of gloss over the jumbo machinders. Let me just check something here real quick. And go back to the robots. Now, Aibos I used to like, and they're collectible in their own right. I never really liked the design per se. I thought they were trying to be what is Slammy talked about Jada. Maybe, you never know. You never know. I do like this Poppy Jumbo machine there because he's very robotic looking. But I see the price of this fluctuate all over the place. Let me get a better. Let me put this down here. Something about this is pretty cool. It's let me go back up. But it's a lot of plastic. But he does look, robotic-y. The box is really cool, though. So as a jumbo machinder goes, that's one of the nicer ones, in my opinion, from a design standpoint. A lot of these, to me, are very expensive, and it reminds me of something that like John Rigg can build with all his servos and the way he can program them, and he can do it for like peanuts, 10 cents on the dollar or less to, 3D print something that looks like this and has the same movements and program it himself. So that's not my cup of tea. I cannot stand these. The style of these. Yeah, they did. I don't like these quadruped. They were supposed to be dogs, I guess, and now they're already using them. They've outfitted them with like machine guns and different cameras. So I just think it looks something like I would expect. And this is strictly from a design standpoint. Like I would expect to see this in the Terminator hunting me. I don't find it appealing. It's kind of creepy looking. And then the price is a little high, and I would make it more pet friendly. The thing is also, what is the purpose of this? I could see it has cameras. I don't know. I'm happier with Astro, I guess. Astro at least has the pad and it can do music. Now, some of these, Yeah, I don't know. Useful for what? I guess if they're tied into, like, see, with Amazon Astro, well, I'd say maybe the dog ones, if they could go over stairs, like the Astro cannot negotiate stairs. So that's the downside to Astro. Um, the dogs could probably go up and down the stairs. So that's a plus if you, if you have stairs in your house. Here's some of the Sofubis, and whether I can get a good robot version of Dynamo. I think I could. Now, I don't know if these prices are really, worth it. More dogs. Now, here's an Aibo. I didn't realize this is a 2023 Aibo. You can see here they started making it a little friendlier looking. Now, this is something that's cute and charming, at least. If you're going to have a robot dog, this, gives you a little bit friendlier vibe, right? It doesn't look like something that's going to, monitor and plug into Skynet and alert the T800 where you're hiding at. So far though, like going from high to low, nothing crazy. Let's scroll down. Can you imagine though, like with all the crazy stuff that's going on, I'm waiting for like the people that are going to be walking these dogs. Like they have to program it to take like a fake poop and maybe even drop something. Like on Futurama, remember they have that little creature that drops like some kind of black hole matter. I forgot the name of it. But we have to have like leashes and these robot dogs that drop some kind of pellet. And I want to see people that start to walk them and actually pick up some plastic poop or something like that. It would just be funny because, people will do it. They'll do it for views on social media, if nothing else. It's thinking, by the way. I'm trying to go to page 2. And let's see here. You can see here it's thinking, and I'll click it again. Now, I have fiber optic here, which don't ask me why they conned me. I had cable. I had no idea. I was so naive when they came out here and said, well, all the businesses want fiber optic. I'm like, man, why not? Sounds good. Until I got that like $500 a month bill. And then once they added the phones, it was like $600 a month. I'm like, bah! I was like, this was kind of a scam, because I think everything that coaxial cable did, fiber optic does. I don't see a market improvement. And meanwhile, I'm getting this thing, and it won't even go to the next page, but I'll click it again and again. So while that's thinking, anything else going on in the chat? Let me see here. Well, this probably isn't working. Well, I hope it's not. Well, my internet's up. I don't know why eBay's freezing here. Let's do it again. Try to refresh it. eBay gets a little wonky sometimes. I was trying to bargain hunt and see if I could find something, and now it's freezing up on me. How did satellite work for you, Patrick? I mean, I know I talked to. I think John has satellite at the Robot Hut. Let me go to a different style and. Oh, this is like completely frozen here. X this out. Go back to Pepper. X that out. X that. Go to a new tab. Let's go to list view. I like list view for some reason. It'll work this way. That's weird. That other tab is just frozen in limbo. Let's see if this one will change over to page 2. All right, so a different tab and it worked. So here on page 2, these animals are ungodly expensive. These furry plush animals. Ooh, I gotta be mindful of the time. I only have about 10 minutes here. Then I'll have to pick this up. Another good-looking jumbo Mashinder. I like the look, at least of the box. Let's see what the toy looks like. Not bad looking. I mean, very robotic. Very robotic. Let's go back here. So far, though, nothing, no tin that infiltrated this 1970 and you, other than the Mirror Man. So now, you know, like, just so you know, my strategy is then just start scrolling fast, and I'm essentially looking for tin, tin, tin. Once in a while, you'll see crazy stuff like Wowie Mr. Personality for 3,000, which is like crazy, crazy. So you know what? Because I'm getting short on time, I'm going to show you then another trick of mine. I'm giving you my secrets here now. So that's the benefit. If there's only a few of you, I'm not giving it away to too many people. So now I'm going to type in tin, and let's see which tin robots come up. All right. So now I've gone from 24,000 results to just 936. So are there any cool vintage tin robots that's in the 1970 and newer category? And so right off the bat, I see the Osaka tin toy, the kind of the rarish but newer gold versions. That's not my cup of tea. We get into a Space Evil, which is newer. This Ultra 7, which is actually very rare and valuable, but not in this condition. If this was in mint condition, it'd be worth a lot of money. But not like this. Not like that. And so far, nothing vintage yet. Now, this isn't a bad price for a reproduction Osaka tin toy Robbie, the silver version, although it doesn't even have a box. And I have like a lot of extra boxes for this though, but that's not too bad. Out of Rhode Island. And he said make an offer even. Oh, he does have a box here. So that's not too bad for a silver. You know, Jose, I try to go to the European one sometimes. I don't really get some. But I'm gonna watch this one. Maybe I'll sometimes I lowball, like offer $500 for something like that, and see where it goes. So that's something that I'll keep on my watch list. Now, another thing for me that has a lot of Tetsugen toys, I might want to like pick up something if I don't need them right now, but like if you need a part, if you have an original Tetsugen and you need, you know, a hand, if you need a fin or something like his head fin or a nose, you might have to suck it up and buy one of these reproductions and just take one of the parts off of it. Here's a wind-up Ultra 7. Now we're getting into some decent tin. This has 8 watchers. It's not a bad price. Ultra 7 is kind of one of the highly desirable ones. And again, those are vintage, but they're 70s. I have the original Garonne. I have the 60s version of this, but this is a cool toy. It's a unique style. I actually like these the walking Astro Man with sparks. They made a lot of colors. This is 650 is not bad. Some people try to mark them up. His thing looks, it's not bad. But if you get one, you'd have to collect all the colors, and you can get really crazy. So again, so far not a lot of vintage stuff here, but that's okay, you know, because this is what you're doing. You're searching. This is actually a really cool toy. I have this in the box. I think I did a video on this. It's the Karajan space station. A lot of cool action on that. Not a bad price, and you could probably get it cheaper. There's another one here. Here's your Mr. Atomics. $500. That's the going rate. Now, some people really like the Osaka versions. I think they're both pretty good. I'd probably take the Osaka version first, but this one has like the shipping box and everything, which is pretty cool, and the certificate and all. So if you wanted to start, you know, a decent collection for $500, that's a pretty cool toy. A lot of the reproductions. I'm going to start scrolling a little faster. And here's a battery-operated playful pup. It's not cheap, but it's vintage. So they get a vintage toy in there. Another Ultra 7. Action Planet robot. Remember, I'm bargain hunting, so I'm just kind of blowing by stuff and seeing if there's anything miscategorized. And here's a vintage toy here under 70s or newer robots. Not bad. If it was in a box, it'd be okay, but for me, a little too pricey. Mechanical rocking horse. This is a vintage toy. Again, this is an example of how things are miscategorized. I don't think it's worth the price, but if you're a cowboy collector, you're like, hey, look at that. I found it in the 1970 and newer robots. I did skip over that astronaut. Here's a vintage toy here. But nothing. I'll only go to page 5, and then I'll wrap it up because I have an appointment coming up. I'll wrap it up with an announcement of a really cool, like I call it a super toy. It's going to have a non-traditional unveiling. So as we go down here, look at this ugly alien. Now, if they could do this Predator, I should be able to do Maria from Metropolis, I think. A vintage police car. When I see the kanji, I know like the Japanese dealers are kind of wonky, so I'm a little reluctant. A lot of them are what they call photo flippers. They'll take pictures from an auction over there and they mark it up and try to sell it here without even owning the product. And then if you buy it, they may not even have access to the product, so you're kind of SOL. So you got to be careful with the Japanese dealers. Let's see here. We'll go to page 5. If by page 5 we don't get a bargain, that's okay. And again, here's a C-3PO, so good example of how you could do a Maria. All right, 2 more to go. Will we get lucky and find that needle in the haystack? Ooh, that's not bad. $225. Inflation from what I paid. So sometimes people have found like original, robots miscategorized like this. Like they'll put a real, let's say, Chief Robot Man, and you're like, oh, what do you know? I got lucky. This is the chrome one. This is somebody was asking me about this. So this was the limited version. I forgot. It was this. I thought this was Main Street Toys. But this is kind of a cool version, the chrome one, as long as it doesn't tarnish. All right, we're almost at the end here. And again, this is an example, a toy like this, where somebody has found like the original Japanese version of this worth thousands of dollars, and they picked it up for like $100 because somebody put it in the wrong category. All right, last page, and then I'll make my announcement. And thank you everybody that, by the way, that joined me. Bright and shiny Bender. Yeah, I mean, if you could find the right item, then it's worth it. But I actually have 2 prototypes I picked up that I'll be filming, by the way. Very cool prototypes. Prototype astronaut from Horikawa. Really cool design. And it's like the 70s Horikawa astronauts. I mean, robots, not astronaut. So if you're into the prototypes, you're going to kind of dig this one. It has cool actions. One of those like crappier styles that I would never collect. But the prototype is it's a neat piece. Let's see, Planet Robot. Not working. Yeah. All right. So that's it. We went through 5 pages, and Today we didn't find a bargain, but you know what? That's a strategy to employ, filtering techniques, and you know, just keep trying. You can do it. Honestly, there was a period where I would do this daily, multiple times a day for years on end, and that's how sometimes the commitment you need to find like a bargain. And I have found them. I mean, you got to remember this is equivalent to like walking on the beach with that metal detector, right? You're not going to get it on the first pass out, and you're waving the wand there, and you think, well, I found my gold doubloon. This is something you got to persistently go after if you really want to find a bargain, and you got to go through all kinds of different categories. But there's other things I look for too. Like there's the rare mummy motionette that's worth like 10,000. I used to have one. Sometimes I look to see if I could find it again. I don't even know where I'd put it, but I just kind of wish that I had one. So anyway, that's it for the eBay. I hope you enjoyed my little window on how you could find a bargain. Now, let me close off with this. I will be premiering the most valuable Jetsons toy ever made. The coolest freaking, I mean, absolutely balls to the wall, amazing box that goes with it that nobody's ever seen before. It's freaking phenomenal. I was told by Hanna-Barbera collectors that the box for the toy didn't exist. I was told that the toy, there was only one or two examples. So I've had it mint in the box for years and years, and I'm going to unveil it, but I'm not going to unveil it on on this channel. What I'm going to do is film it for the debut of the Alphadrome YouTube channel, and then I'll put the link on Alphadrome. So I figured, you know what, in order to get thanks, Jose. See you later, too. Peace. So what I'm going to do is film it for the Alphadrome. I think that's my intentions. Either that or I'll do it on the live stream here. But I'm planning on filming it for the Alphadrome channel. And then, so this is how I'll do it. I'll film it as a regular video that you would normally see here. And I'll have a lot of pictures that'll go through. And then from there, I'll do a live stream. And then I'll simultaneously, make that link public, post it on Alphadrome, and then I'll live stream it here. And you'll see the most phenomenal freaking Jetsons toy that you ever seen. The box will blow you away. It'll absolutely blow you away. So with that, thank you very much for joining me, everyone. I really appreciate it. And don't forget to please share these videos, because that's how we can, maybe get this to grow, and encourage me to do more live streams. So with that, thanks again for your time. You guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And with that, I will talk to you later. Peace.